So, as I mentioned on the other side of the break, many of us, myself included, choose to be landlords to build up our income and give us a kind of pension when we retire, because many of us don't have pensions like the politicians do. But what happens when your place gets trashed by the tenant? You would expect that the landlord-tenant board might have your back, right? Well, not so fast. We're joined now by Varun Sriskanda. He's a board member of the Small Ownership Landlords of Ontario, SOLO, here to speak with us. Hi, Varun. How are you?
Good morning. How you doing?
Good. Thanks so much for joining me this morning. So can you just kind of give us a brief synopsis and explain what happened in this recent case of a not-for-profit group in Kitchener that found their place trashed?
Yep. This group in Kitchener had taken to the LTB an application for damages. And with that application, they have submitted numerous pictures and photographs that I can only describe as, if the listeners haven't seen these pictures, garbage everywhere. Feces, urine everywhere. The place was trashed. And this landlord, they took this evidence to the landlord and tenant board in hopes that they would take them seriously and actually deliver a fair ruling. No, the application was dismissed. The adjudicator, who has a background in real estate and paralegal work, has said that there's insufficient evidence to show that there's actually overwhelming identifiable damage. That's ridiculous.
Wow. And so what were they trying to get, when they were going to the landlord-tenant board, were they just trying to get the tenant evicted because of all that garbage? Is that what was happening?
It was twofold. They were trying to get an order for damages because the cost to clean this up is going to be immense, and it will take a toll on a not-for-profit group. And the second part was to get the tenant evicted. But in this case, the tenant had already ran away and abandoned the property before they could be held accountable.
Ah, interesting. You know, it's funny, actually. Something similar happened to me in that the tenant did leave the place. Kind of like I saw those pictures. They weren't as bad as what I had to deal with, but we still had there was a cup of urine. There was garbage everywhere. And, that tenant left. And so our property manager quickly went in there, changed the locks. We got a bin and threw everything out. But, we did have to engage with a paralegal because they said, because at some point this tenant was like, oh, no, I was planning on moving back in. And we were like, you have 3 kids. There's no way you're living there with kids, So it's kind of scary.
We see this all the time. And what ends up happening is small landlords such as yourself, they're completely leaving the business. They don't want anything to do with the province of Ontario. The LTB is completely unfair and biased, and it disproportionately supports tenants over landlords. What ends up happening is small landlords, such as yourself and myself included, we're listing our rental properties for sale, and we're getting out of this business. There's absolutely no need for us to be supporting this housing industry and providing housing to people who do not respect it and do not pay for it. And worst comes to worst, we don't even have a landlord and tenant board that backs us up.
Yeah, no, I mean, I could go on, but maybe I shouldn't.
I could too.
But, the question is that why aren't the politicians listening? So the Ontario Real Estate Association put together a report a couple of years ago, and they actually recommended that the landlord-tenant board be sort of reevaluated, right? We need to relook. I mean, in my opinion, we just need to reopen the landlord-tenant board and all the landlord rules because they're not working. And why can't we get politicians to see that? I feel like they don't want to be on the side of landlords because they think it's politically negative for them. And so therefore we can't get any resolutions.
Yeah. Well, it's been said time and time again that the LTB needs a complete overhaul.
Yeah.
It's not enough for the LTB to just say that, we're abiding by the RTA and we're working within the RTA. The LTB has shown time and time again that they do not use common sense. They do not consider the evidence that's put before them. And time again, they are dismissing applications for small, minor errors and things that are just costing this province and Ontario landlords more money.
Absolutely. And I just want to say that you mentioned RTA, and I just want to let people know that stands for the Residential Tenancies Act, just in case people want to know. So, why can't the government make a change? Why is it? I mean, I guess it's not an easy switch to reopen the Residential Tenancies Act and relook at all the landlord tenant board rules, but why don't they do it?
Yeah, the government keeps throwing adjudicators at this problem. They seem to think that as long as we hire more adjudicators, and Doug Ford every few months, him and Doug Downey will come up with this press release that says we have a bunch of new adjudicators at the LTB. But ask any landlord and tenant, and they'll tell you they do not see anything actually happening.
Yeah.
It's still 3 to 4 months to get an eviction for a non-payment of rent. It's still 10 to 12 months at the LTB if you want to move into your own rental property. The wait times are ridiculous. Nobody is willing to wait this long. And by the time you do wait this long, it costs you an immense amount of money. So what the Ford government needs to do is you need to streamline these applications, right? When someone comes to the landlord-tenant board and says they have a non-payment of rent application, there's no need to make a small landlord wait 4 to 5 months before they can have a hearing. It's a black or white issue. You either paid or you didn't pay. There's no need for us to continue to tell small landlords, sit in line and wait for your hearing. And by the time you get your hearing, you're going to be even more broke than you were when this hearing started.
Yeah.
It's really tough.
Yeah. In fact, I had the case last year where I'm a real estate agent, and I sold a house. My clients lived upstairs. There was a basement apartment. The tenant was in the basement. We sold the house. The tenant was supposed to leave because, the new buyers wanted to live in the whole house. And she basically said, I come with the house. I'm not leaving. And so we're about to go to our third landlord-tenant board hearing actually this week. We still can't get her out. And that happened last year. So we ended up having to sign a mutual release with the buyers to release them from their obligation to buy the house. Meanwhile, my clients have had to pay for all of this. They were planning on retiring. They had to go back to work. I mean, it's crazy what they are doing to private individuals who've chosen to become landlords. So, there's thinking out there that people don't believe in the financialization of housing. They don't believe that people like you and I should be able to be landlords and buy properties to rent them out. What would you say to people like that? Your other alternative is the government provides you housing. And the government doesn't do a very good job of providing housing. We've seen this over and over again. Look at the city of Toronto and the housing they provide, right? The worst landlord in the city of Toronto is Toronto, ECHC. They are the worst landlord. So the small landlords, such as yourself and me, we provide stable, clean, safe houses and condos for small families, growing families, for people in need, for people who really should not be in market rate rentals. We're still there, providing housing to people on disability benefits, on welfare, on social assistance, and we're still there providing all sorts of housing. So for you to say that, and for anyone to say that nobody should be able to benefit from housing, it's not correct. We're here to provide a service, and we're here to provide a clean, safe, and affordable service. Yeah,
it's absolutely ridiculous to assume that the government would step in to provide you housing. It's not going to happen. Rental housing is supposed to be a safe place for you to grow and save for you to buy your first investment.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, obviously, I agree with you, and there's lots of us who we don't have pensions. We don't have government pensions. And so for me, I see having real estate investing as that is my pension, right? Like that is how I'm going to pay for my life after I retire, because I can't rely on the government to give me money. And it's funny, I don't even think about, the old age security, or to me, I think, okay, if those things go away, I'm still good on my own because I've planned ahead for it. And there's lots of us that are trying to plan ahead for our lives, which is why we are becoming landlords. So, I think it's a shame that people don't see the value in what we're doing. But anyways, I think it's a complicated issue. Actually, it's not that complicated. I just wish there was more political will to do something about it. Wouldn't you agree?
Absolutely. I wish politicians would pay attention and actually make the changes at the LTB. We need Doug Downey to really start sitting in on some LTB hearings. You will be shocked at some of the things that happen.
Yeah, I don't think I would be now.
And they get more time to pay.
I know. Varun, thank you so much for joining us this morning. It's been great chatting with you.
Always a pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Thanks so much. That was Varun Sriskanda from the Small Ownership Landlords of Ontario, or SOLO for short. We even had a text from somebody mentioning that their cousin had to take a home a little bit later just because the tenants would not leave. Unfortunately, it is a common story. I wish it wasn't the case, and I do wish that there was some more government will to do something about the Residential Tenancies Act and the Landlord Tenant Board. But here we are.